everyone. My name is Prachi Ganmote, and I am on the core team for GirlCon this year. And welcome to our third keynote with Alyssa Miller. Watching this conference come to fruition through all of your stories on Instagram, questions during sessions, and enthusiasm to connect with others has been the most fulfilling experience. Make sure to continue using our hashtag #TakeTheMic, tag @GirlConTech on everything you post, and continue to participate in our social media challenges to earn more points for swag. I truly can't believe how fast this conference has been going, that we've already approached our third keynote of the conference. Alyssa Miller is a lifelong hacker, security advocate, and cybersecurity leader. She's the BISO for S&P Global Ratings and has over 15 years of experience in security roles. She has been heavily involved in the cybersecurity community as an international speaker, author, and advocate. Her views, research, and career journey has been featured in Tribe of Hackers Blue Team, SC Magazine, Cybercrime Magazine, and various other media experiences. Now, please welcome Alyssa Miller.
Hello, everybody. I am so happy to be here. Thank you all for joining. What an amazing event thus far. Hope you guys are all enjoying it. So again, my name is Alyssa Miller, and it is my absolute honor to be here with you guys today. So let me begin. How many of you recognize this face? I realized going into this talk today that there's probably a whole bunch of you out there who weren't even born yet when this movie came out. Maybe you've seen it, though, on reruns. They show it every year at Christmas time. It's Ralphie from A Christmas Story. Most of us know the movie, but in case you don't, Ralphie, and the whole story is about Ralphie. It's this Christmas time movie, and he has this one wish for Christmas. He wants his Red Ryder BB gun. And he has all these dreams, these big dreams about how he's going to get this Red Ryder BB gun, and he's going to fight criminals, and he's going to do all these things. But you know what? All the adults in his life just keep telling him, hey, you can't have that because you'll shoot your eye out. And what happens in the end? His dad gives him the BB gun, and unfortunately, he shoots his eye out. But this is what happens to us when we start to dream as women in the workforce. When we have our big dreams, people are out there all the time telling us, hey, you can't go for that next big thing because you'll shoot your eye out. But the reality is it's just not true. But this happens all the time, and it holds us back. It keeps us from achieving those big dreams. And you know what? Sometimes it's us, ourselves, who are our own worst enemies. So how do we start to break through this? How do we do better? How do we achieve those goals to grow and to get to that level that we want to be at within our own careers? So that's what I want to talk to you about today. So let me begin first by telling you a little bit about my own career journey. So at 19 years old, I was in college. And I had started in a pre-med major and pretty quickly got away from that because I realized that college chemistry really wasn't the thing for me. And so I moved on and I got into a computer science role. Well, this was during the .com era that, some of you may remember or may have at least heard about when, the internet was really coming of age, and they would hire programmers. If you knew anything about programming, they wanted you. And so I got my first job as a programmer at 19 years old, working for a large financial technologies company. And I did that for a lot of years, almost 10 years. But then at the age of 28, I became a penetration tester. I had no dreams of doing this. This was just something that happened. But it happened because a manager came to me and said, hey, you know what? Would you like to join my security test team? I had worked with her a number of times along the way on different projects. And I told her, I said, look, I don't know anything about pen testing. I can't do that. And she said, you'll figure it out. You're smart. That's why I wanted you. And that's why I came to you about this opportunity. So I said, okay. And I joined that team. And by the time I was 31, I was leading that team. I was managing that team, but not just the security test team, the vulnerability management program for this massive Fortune 200 company. And yet, I just didn't give myself credit for what I had accomplished. But I did that for a number of years. And then at the age of 35, I decided I'd seen enough, and I got into consulting. And I was a practice manager for this application security consulting practice. And working with my director, I was able to, from the ground up, build a team that became the most profitable team across our entire organization. And this was in a practice that had been the least profitable before I arrived. So again, great accomplishment, but I never really saw that as something, to really be all excited about. I never gave myself much credit for it. I worked with my director, and that's kind of how I got there. Well, at the age of 37, I switched companies. And I went to another organization where I took over their program services practice. I was leading this practice now, an entire consulting practice, helping organizations, large Fortune 500s, international agencies, build application security programs. But ho-hum, no big deal, right? I mean, and that's kind of the way I looked at it. And then I hit 41, and I was working for yet another consulting organization, and I got passed over for a promotion. And this was a promotion where I had been recommended by the outgoing director. He had told the executive committee, he had told the VP, who was the hiring manager, Alyssa's the one that you need to hire. She's the best person to replace me. And yet I got passed over. And there were a lot of things about that that just didn't sit right with me. And there's a lot, I won't even go into all the details, but there were a lot of things that really bothered me. I never got a true explanation for why I didn't get the role. And that crushed my self-confidence. And I ended up taking a job. I ended up taking a pay cut. I moved out of management, and I started in a completely different role because my confidence had just been shattered. And so I decided to chase things that really weren't on kind of my vision for where I wanted to be. I wanted to move up in leadership. I felt I was really good at it. But now I was starting to think maybe I just wasn't there. Maybe that wasn't the thing for me. Well, then it happened. In January of this year, I joined a new organization as a business information security officer, S&P Global Ratings. I found this job. I reached out. I talked to the CISO of the organization about this role because she had posted it on LinkedIn. She was somebody I just knew through Twitter and through social media. We had interacted a number of times. I reached out to her and I just kind of asked her about it. And it sounded like something I could do. And she asked me if I was interested in it. And I said, yeah, of course. It sounds great. She connected me with a hiring manager. And now I find myself in this role where I am responsible for the entire security strategy for a $4 billion a year division of S&P. It's like a dream come true. But I went from having no confidence at all in myself to suddenly seeing that this was something I could go for. And it all happened because I started to look back on those past accomplishments and see what I had done. I connected through my network, and I started to finally see that I could do this. And I didn't take a pay cut. I didn't take a lateral pay move. I negotiated, I fought for, and I got a significant raise. I got significant benefits improvements when I went for this job. I negotiated. I made sure I fought for what I needed and what I wanted from the role. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Because these are the things that, especially as women, we're conditioned not to do. And they're the very things that hold us back. There are so many things in the corporate world that are just set up to derail women in our careers. And 2020 was particularly hard on women. A lot of these things are systematic. Our managers don't even realize they exist. Organizations who mean well don't even realize that this happens in our society. And it doesn't matter what culture you live in, whether you're in the United States, whether you're in Eastern Asia, whether you're in Europe. There is still this belief that for women, work needs to be secondary, that raising our families, raising children, taking care of the household, that's where our primary focus needs to be. And work is just this thing. Our careers are just this thing we can treat as, well, if we can do them, they're nice. But we don't always get to approach that. So work is always treated as this secondary thing for us. Second, there's this value placed on overwork, not just for women, but for everybody, but in particular for women, where we're expected to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week. We're expected to to just take on so much more than maybe some of our peers. And these are things that they're not healthy, and they don't help us progress to that next level. Our organizations, for their part, try to make this a better environment and more welcoming for women, but in doing so, they create these off-ramps for us. What do I mean by off-ramps? I'm talking about things like extended maternity leave, things that are geared, again, towards women treating work as secondary. They're meant to be helpful, but they ultimately encourage us to move away from our careers and to put less focus on building our careers. And then finally, there's this lack of role models. If you work in cybersecurity, you've probably seen the studies. You know that less than 20% of cybersecurity professionals are women. We just don't see those role models, and we definitely don't see them at higher level positions. And those are things that keep us from chasing our dreams and from doing better. Now, of course, there's also this thing we call imposter syndrome. Some of you may know this, you may have experienced it, but maybe you can't quite put your finger on where it comes from. So hopefully you've seen this graphic before, but in case you haven't, this is what imposter syndrome is. Imposter syndrome is we look at ourselves and we say we know this much, the small little portion of all that there is to know about cybersecurity. But when we look at others, we think that each of those people that we see knows so much more than we do. How can we possibly ever catch up to them? We're just this imposter. Like someday we're going to get found out that we don't know as much as all these other people who have these grandiose knowledge bases. And how are we ever going to get there? And it happens for the very reasons that I described. We don't give ourselves enough credit for the things that we do. I didn't give myself credit for the fact that I was running a vulnerability management program at 31 years old. But the reality is this isn't what others know. Instead, when we look and we see all these different people, we in our heads combine all their knowledge together, and we believe that they got there on their own and they know everything, that they never got any help. So when we look at ourselves, we say, oh, well, I had help, I got lucky, and we think they know so much more than they do. But the reality is they don't know any more than we do. They just know their own specialized piece that maybe we don't know as much about. But we also know things that they don't know. And we have to give ourselves credit for that. Now, one of the other things that holds women back is this idea of job descriptions. So job descriptions are awful. Take a look at this job description for a minute. This is a job description that goes on for 3 pages. It defines all of these responsibilities and all of these required experiences that we have to have. And maybe you've seen the studies before, but women, we tend to look at job descriptions and we tend to not even apply if we don't fill at least 80% of those required levels of experience. Men, on the other hand, will look at this, and if they say 30%, yeah, they'll apply. We need to get over this idea. We need to recognize that job descriptions are awful. This is something I advocate in that hiring space. I'm trying to get companies to do better. But for now, as we look at job descriptions, we need to understand they're never going to find a unicorn that matches all of these bullet points. And so if you read through that role and you see what it says you're going to be responsible for on a daily basis, and you feel like you can do that and you can learn on the job and you're going to be able to tackle those things, you need to apply. That's where it's time to start reaching out and shoot your shot. Go for it. Chase that dream. Don't worry so much about if you tick all those boxes. Is it something that sounds awesome? It sounds like it might just be the next step for you. Then chase that down. Don't let the job description scare you off from going after that next big thing. Now, another thing that tends to hold us back is that we don't often know our own worth. Going into a job, you have to forget about everything that people tell you about what you make today. I just got done coaching somebody in a job search, and she was so worried about what she was making now, and that, she wanted to make so much more in this new position, but she was worried that people would ask her about, what she makes today, and they would say that, well, she's not deserving of that amount. First of all, it's illegal in many states these days for anybody to ask you what you currently make. But the reality is what you make now is totally irrelevant. You need to get paid for the job that you're going to be doing. And that's the way you need to approach those interviews. So when you go to an interview, if you live in one of the states where they do ask you what you make now, it is okay for you to redirect that conversation and talk about what you want to make, not what you're making now. Because the reality is your pay within that organization is not set based on what you make currently. They set their salary ranges based on the job you're going to be doing. And doing your research, going to places like Glassdoor and LinkedIn and others, and looking at what other people are making for that same role, understanding coming in what you should make, that's what's most important. And that's what you need to be asking for and expecting when you go into that job. Don't let them make you feel uncomfortable asking for more money. The reality is you deserve to get paid for the job that you're going to do. You don't get your salary set based on what you were making in your last job. So hold that attitude. Go in there and fight for what's yours. Now, I mentioned before this idea of how I had this mentor, if you will, and I've had a lot of mentors along the way. And people get told all the time, hey, seek out a mentor. What you need to understand about mentorships is mentorships are not just there to teach you, here's what you need to learn, here's technical knowledge you need, here's how you plan your career path. When you're talking with a mentor, the whole point of having a mentor is to understand how they got there. Because everybody's story is a little bit different. Learn, see how their story is different from yours and see how they're the same. You want to understand them at a personal level. Mentoring is not about them just telling you, here's how you go from this step in your career to this next step in your career. Here's how you go from being a senior manager to being a director. Here's how you go from being a VP to being a CISO of an organization. That's all well and good, and those conversations are good to have, but get to know them on a personal level and let them establish that networking relationship with you, because that's where the true value is. Now, as you keep them in your life for more than just gaining knowledge, but really establishing that relationship, when you go and search or they hear about a job opening, they remember you and they remember what you're searching for, and now they can come seek you out. So let's go back to the job search for a minute and those denials. We all hate getting denials, right? It hurts. We take it personally. It's a sign that we weren't qualified for that job. They didn't want us. They're going to keep looking, or they wanted somebody else. They chose somebody else over us. We need to look at denials differently. First and foremost, they are a learning opportunity for us. I know that sounds cliche, right? Oh, I got denied for a job, but I should learn from it. But that's the truth. Many jobs, if you reach out to them, they'll tell you what it is, that what skill or what characteristic you didn't have that they were looking for. And sometimes it's just that you weren't a fit for that particular role, or they found somebody who was a better fit. But look at denials as a way to know that you are shooting for the right level of job. If you're going out and you get that first job that you applied to, they hire you and you think you're great and they don't even hire any other candidates, maybe you haven't pushed yourself high enough. Maybe you could have gone for a higher level role. So realize that not only are those denials a chance for you to learn, but they're a chance to validate that you're shooting at the right level, that you're aiming for the correct next step. You're not holding yourself back. Don't take denials personally. They're not personal. Sometimes there's just not the right fit between you and an organization, and that's okay. You don't want to go into an organization where you're not going to have a good fit. Yes, you really want that job, but when you see that that organization doesn't fit you, trust me, you don't want to end up in that role, because that's where you end up in toxic environments, and you're not going to enjoy that job anyway, and it's not going to last. And in a year, maybe 6 months even, you're going to be looking for another job. So be smart about denials. I know they can be painful, but see them for what they are. They can be affirming for you. They can be helpful for you, and they do help you grow. Failure is just part of how we learn. So if you look at them as failures, think about it that way. It's just part of the learning process. Now, you get into that job and, hey, you got that job offer. Understand that every job offer is negotiable. Every job offer. Every company expects you to negotiate something about that job offer. It might be salary. It might be bonuses. It might be vacation time. You're not going to scare off a job simply because you come back and ask for more money. If you do your homework and you know what you're worth, and that particular job offer comes in lower than you wanted to make, let them know. Tell them where you want to be. Work with them. Now, of course, if they come in at 100,000 and you say, I want to make 500,000, that's probably not a good fit. But again, it's just that it's not a good fit. They have their salary ranges. If their salary range is lower than what you want to make, again, realize that that's just a company then that you don't want to work for. It's not a fit for the two of you. If you feel you deserve to be making more and you decide to come in for less, again, you're just going to end up being unhappy. So don't be afraid to come and say, hey, I want to make more in this role. I need to be making this much because I'm going to be doing this kind of work. And remember, it's a negotiation. So they may come back with another number. They might offer you a signing bonus. They may offer you bigger variable compensation, a bigger bonus program, where maybe you don't get paid as much per paycheck, but you have that opportunity to make so much more on a periodic basis. These are all valid ways that you can negotiate with your employer to get more money. But you need to understand what's important to you. Do you need that steady income and you've got to be at a certain monthly dollar amount? Then that's what you need to fight for. If you're looking at it as a total compensation package, fight for that. Be aware you can fight for space in one area, but maybe not in all. I can't say I want more money and I want better benefits and I want this and I want that and I want that and I want that and expect to get it all. But go for it. Ask for what it is you need. Also be aware there are some things that just simply aren't negotiable. Like they are not going to change their entire benefits package just for you. Those things can't change in mid-year typically. They're negotiated at a corporate level. So understand they're not going to change their insurance to a different company or provide different coverage than what they have. But go in there expecting that your job offer is a negotiation. You're not going to shoot your eye out. You're not going to lose that job offer simply because you said you deserve to make more money than what they've offered. Hold that confidence. Know what you're worth. Go get it. Shoot your shot. Go for that job that you want. Land that job. Get what you deserve because that's what's going to make you happy. And that's what's going to keep you from falling into those toxic situations where you never advance and you're never quite happy with where you're at. Now, it's about time for me to wrap up and we'll definitely take some Q&A, but I want to throw it out there to you. You can also connect with me online. You see my Twitter profile here, my LinkedIn profile, my website. For some reason, they all dropped the last character to the next line. I'm sure you can figure it out. But please connect with me on social media. I'm always happy to discuss, and I always want to share more and hear your ideas too. So as I wrap up, I just want to say a super special thank you to all of you for being a part of this today. A big thank you to GirlCon for having me. And of course, thank you to my organization, S&P Global Ratings, for making it possible for me to be here today. And with that, I know we're going to open it up for Q&A at this point.
Thank you so much, Alyssa, for sharing your story and serving as such an inspiring role model for everyone here through your powerful words. It's very inspiring, and I'm so happy that we're going to start the Q&A portion because there have been some really good questions coming in the chat. So the first question I have for you is, do you have any advice for succeeding in a professional role when you feel like you don't have enough experience necessarily?
Yes. So that again is where I talked about, go back to that job description, right? If you don't feel like you have the experience, there's a lot of things you can do. First of all, make sure that you're giving yourself enough credit for what you know. That person I mentioned who I've worked with on her job search, she was in a technical writing role and didn't believe that she knew enough about cybersecurity. Well, then I started talking to her and she started telling me about all these things she had done with like Hack the Box and Try Hack Me and doing different trainings and we started talking about like threat intel concepts and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know so much you're not giving yourself credit for. So think about that. Think about any learning that you've done or look into doing that learning. The other thing I will say that helps with that is if you do any of that type of self-study, document it and document it publicly. Create blogs, create video series, maybe write something on Medium, whatever. Put instructional material out there, even if nobody watches it. What it does is it gives you something tangible that you can include on your resume. It's one step above simply saying, hey, I completed these 20 challenges on Try Hack Me. No, you actually created instructional material that they can look at and they can see how you've mastered those topics.
That's really great advice. And I definitely think that's a really good way for, especially for me, knowing that I have a lot of, sometimes imposter syndrome. And I know you also talked about that in your keynote. So do you have any advice for combating imposter syndrome for any girls who face that? Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things, and some of it's easy to say, not so easy to do, right? Like I mentioned, I didn't give myself credit for all those things I did. But go back and really try to list out your accomplishments and get this, first of all, get this mindset out of your head that, you got lucky or, well, you had help with it, so you don't deserve credit for it. Everybody stands on the shoulders of others. That's how we get there. Everybody had help to get where they got today. I did. CISOs of Fortune 500 companies did. It doesn't matter. However high you're looking to go, everybody had help. Everybody feels like they got lucky. But look at it and try to think about it objectively. Think about, what are those key things? What were the things you had the most fun with or you're the most proud of? And acknowledge them for what they are. And then, work with the people around you and see those who've been with you on that journey. Ask them to describe the things that you've done and listen to them. Hear what they have to say and think about it objectively. When they say, wow, yeah, you did that thing. You built that whole security program, or, you discovered those vulnerabilities in that web application that, was so critical to our organization. Whatever it is, hear that and acknowledge that and embrace that those are things about you that stand out, that you've accomplished, and it is okay for you to brag about that. I was always afraid. I didn't want to brag about the things I'd done. I'd get in job interviews and I'd always downplay everything I did. The job interview, that is a sales opportunity for you. You have to be your own best salesperson in that moment. One of my colleagues does a great thing when he does resume workshops with people. He asks them when they sit down, he looks through the resume, and the first thing he does is says, okay, in 2 minutes, give me your elevator pitch. What is it about you that I want, that makes me want you in my organization over and above anyone else? And after they tell him, he goes through their resume, and if they haven't listed it there, those are things he has them list. That's the way you want to think about it. When you go into any of these job situations, you are selling yourself. So brag hard, brag a lot.
I think that's very, very true. So someone wanted to know if there is one piece of advice you could give to your younger self, what would that be?
Oh boy. I think, again, it would be try to embrace self-confidence in my accomplishments. When I got passed over for that promotion, it was painful. And I mean, to be blunt with you, it was a situation that to this day, I believe there was discrimination involved, which for whatever reason, despite even realizing that, it still hurt my self-confidence. And the part I didn't get to tell you, the thing that actually built my confidence the most, or kind of brought me back, was that I was working in that subsequent job that I'd gone to, because I had to get out of that environment. And it was one of the big 3 social media companies had an executive search that actually reached out to me to ask me about an executive role in their organization. Now, that didn't take off. They actually didn't even create the job that they were talking about creating, whatever. But just the fact that somebody reached out to me and said that, suddenly it was like a different thing. I'd never realized, like, oh, I am actually qualified to be where I want to go. Or they would have never reached out to me because they didn't know me from anybody. They found my credentials through my presence in the industry. So that's going to happen to you too as you build your network. People are going to come to you with those opportunities. Don't be afraid to chase those opportunities. It is okay. If someone came to you and said they want to talk to you about something, you're probably qualified to do it, especially if it's someone you know or it's someone pretty prominent. At least go explore it. You've got nothing to lose. That's the last thing I'll say on that. Is one thing I've always done in my career is, people ask, well, are you open to new opportunities? I'm always open. Doesn't mean I'm looking to leave, but I'm always open. If I hear something, someone comes to me with a great opportunity, I'm always willing to explore that and hear more.
Yeah, I think that's very true and really, really great advice. So looking at the time, I think that's all the time we have for questions. But before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask, are there any final words you have to leave the attendees with, Alyssa?
Just again, don't be afraid to shoot your shot. Anyone who tells you you don't belong or you're pushing too far too fast, lock those voices out of your head. If you feel confident, you feel like you can do that job, go for it. Don't be afraid to dream big. I mean, I always thought I would be a CISO one day, and now I feel like I'm really just one step away from that. This BISO role that I find myself in now in other organizations, they would call it a CISO. So that's where I'm at right now, and that's really exciting to me. So whatever it is that you want to do, don't let anyone, not even yourself, talk you out of it. When you find yourself making excuses, that's the time to realize that you're lying to yourself and you can do it. So go for it.
Thank you so much, Alyssa, again, for sharing your story and your words of wisdom. This has been so empowering for me personally, and I'm sure all the attendees can relate as well. And we truly appreciate all your insight and all the time that you took today to speak with us. So thank you so much. But with that, we have officially ended our day 3 keynote. Please fill out the feedback form that will be dropped in the chat by the GirlCon team to earn points towards winning an official GirlCon swag bag. And for more information about that point system and swag, make sure to check your email or also check out our Instagram. Additionally, we will be also dropping a link for the Google Doc, which contains all the GirlCon Zooms for all the sessions we've been running, and especially our YouTube links as well. But do not share this document with anyone else who hasn't registered for GirlCon. Also remember that we are going to be sending out recordings for all sessions to attendees after the conference, so don't worry about missing any of those sessions you might be interested in. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you throughout the rest of the conference. Bye, everyone.